Hey guys, Hailey, Lain, aka Key Black here, and welcome back to another episode of Off the Cuff. And today, I kinda wanted to revisit an old anime series that, well, maybe I shouldn't call it old. I watched it while I was growing up. It's called Zatch Bell, or in the Japanese version, Konjiki no Gash, which basically translates to Golden Boy Gash. And I find this very funny. As I was looking up some clips to refresh my memory on this series, I found out that there's a sequel that Makoto Raiku started in 2022, literally called Konjiki no Gash 2. So I know absolutely nothing about that, but the original Zatch Bell was a really fun series when I was growing up. It would usually be on Neguzi when I would get home from, sports practice, right around the time I'd be heading home, actually, so whether or not I caught the new episodes was always hit or miss. I'm pretty sure it was on Toonami briefly as well, but this was around the same time that I was getting into One Piece and into Yu-Gi-Oh!, so I ended up picking up some manga of it once I found it in a Barnes & Noble. It was a wildly silly series. I think it affected a lot of my taste in humor for a long time. You know, very, very nonsensical, non sequitur kind of jokes, and the characters were always, way out there. And the drawing style was pretty unique as well. I remember it had some pretty wacky expressions. If you're not familiar with the story of Zatch Bell, it's basically that these demon children, they're called mamodos in the English version, come in from another world into the human world, and they have to find their designated human partner who is able to read their spells from their spell book so that they can access their powers. And the point is basically they duke it out to find out who's going to be the next demon king for the next whoever knows how many years. And the titular character, Zatch Bell, is a mamodo with lightning powers who is paired up with Kyo Takamine. And the whole crux of the story is that Zatch is actually a total amnesiac. So first off, he doesn't even know he has superpowers, and second off, when all of this crazy stuff happens with other mamodos appearing to do battle with Zatch and try to burn his book to send him back to the mamodo world, he has no idea what's going on. And Kyo, for his part, is, a genius high schooler kid who ended up kind of rocketing to the head of his class at the expense of being able to be friends with his classmates. They started to resent him and he started to resent them. And so first impressions of the series, Zatch shows up with a letter from Kyo's father basically saying, hey, my son's been kind of an idiot. You need to, help him find some friends and learn to be a normal teenager. And also, hello, my son Kyo, can you help this child recover his memories? I found him injured in a forest one day. Zatch shows up in the series dangling from the legs of a hawk holding a massive yellowtail that he's just caught and proceeds to eat live as Kyo reads the letter from his father. The series kind of starts off on a really energetic, really crazy note, and it doesn't really come down from that point. When it was goofy, it was insanely goofy, and when it was sincere, it actually hit pretty hard. But I really liked the interplay and kind of contrast between the two main storylines, the grander Mamodo battle going on versus the kind of brotherly relationship developing between Kyo and Zatch. So Zatch brings Kyo out of his shell, Kyo helps Zatch mature over the course of the series. It's a really sweet storyline, although it does start going into some crazy territory. I remember, towards one of the climaxes, there's this giant Mamodo that's made up of, a bunch of different pieces, and they end up inside this giant Mamodo, trying to destroy it from the inside out. There were a couple of plot lines that hit pretty hard, and, I seem to remember them being pretty heavily melodramatic, like the Kalulu episode. I did a stream a little while back, basically just riffing on how absurdly heavy that episode was compared to the surrounding ones. I do remember my favorite duo being Parco Folgore and Kanchome. Basically, this Italian pop star who comes to Japan, and his little sidekick Kanchome is this duck-looking Mamodo. They're both massive chickens. Kanchome's powers are all based on, creating illusions to scare other people into thinking he's tougher than he is. But over the course of the series, Kanchome ends up being one of the most formidable Mamodo, and kind of grows into this very reliable character. Same with Parco Fulgore himself. It's actually a really sweet development storyline, but they are the most ridiculous characters in this series. I would say it's primarily through the discovery of what the Japanese version was of Parco Fulgore's Hey, Hey, Let's Dance All Day song that I realized just how common it was for anime to be heavily censored coming over from Japan. I knew what 4Kids had done to all the anime that they touched, but I didn't realize it wasn't just 4Kids. But comparing the manga to the English dub of the anime, from what I remember, it actually did a pretty decent job of staying true to what was happening in the manga, just taking out some of the severity and some of the, more risque stuff. But I remember it being a really fun series. Some of the early episodes are still very dear to my heart. And maybe one of these days I'll go back and revisit it like I did in college when I actually finished the series. And that was a trip. I think the story had like 2 or 3 different climaxes that just kind of came out of nowhere. But I'm gonna go ahead and wrap it up there, guys. Thanks so much for listening and for watching, and I'll see you in the next Off the Cuff. Thanks again.